Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, ready.
Who is Carrie? Chapter 5. One of the jobs I'd done around there was carrying out dinners for them as was too lazy to come to the tavern. Cooked lobsters or oysters or beef a la mode, which was put up in a sauce. They'd send over a message they wanted such and such for dinner, and the cooks would get it ready, and I'd cart it over in a bucket as fast as I could so it wouldn't cool down. The bucket was heavy and bumped against my legs as I trotted along with it, but I didn't mind because it gave me a chance to get out and have a look around. I'd wondered about the people I saw coming along, what they was thinking and what kind of a house they had, and whether they was happy or had some sorrow in their lives and was sad. Or I'd see a dead horse lying in the streets with his legs sticking out, looking just like he was alive and would get up any minute. And I'd wonder what it was like to be dead and not feeling nothing at all. Or I'd see the birds twittering around in the trees, and I'd wonder what it would be like to be able to fly away to wherever you wanted, up on top of a roof or into a church steeple, or just go away, way up and look down. That's what I'd do if I could fly. Go away, way up and look down and see the whole of New York City all at once, the buildings so tiny and the people no bigger than cockroaches. I'd give anything to have wings. I'd fly away and never be a slave no more. If I had wings, I wouldn't be able to pick up a bucket of oysters or pump water or peel potatoes anyway. A couple of days after the inauguration, one of the professors at Columbia College ordered up some beef a la mode. They was always ordering food, them professors. They was too smart to cook for themselves. Off I went, and when I came back, I saw Mr. Francis standing in front of the tavern talking to a gentleman. He was younger than Mr. Francis, and he was dressed in a blue coat and yellow waistcoat and had silver buckles on his shoes. He looked mighty rich. They was talking serious, and naturally I was curious. But I couldn't just stand there and listen. If Mr. Francis wanted an audience, he would let me know. So I went into the alley that ran alongside the tavern, and when I was out of sight of them, I stopped and cocked my head. "This is a serious proposal, Mr. Lear," I heard Mr. Francis say. "President Washington was quite definite about it." "I consider it a great honor," Mr. Francis said. "The President feels you are equal to it." "I would hope to be worthy. I would hope to set the best table in the United States." Just then, one of the cooks come around the corner. Quick as I could, I knelt down, took off my shoe, and gave it a shake like I got a stone in it. "Where have you been so long, Nosy?" she said. "You ain't supposed to call me Nosy," I said. "Don't you get sassy with me, you little pickaninny," she said. She come down the alley and snatched at my ear to give it a twist, but I ducked around her and went into the kitchen where there was a stack of potatoes near as high as I was waiting for me, and them no more glad to see me than I was them. And I was peeling away at them, thinking that I didn't so much mind that God made potatoes. They was mighty good roasted. But why did he have to put their skins on so tight? When the third came in all flushed and bustling with something to tell. "You ain't going to believe this, everybody," she said. "Mr. Francis, he's going to work for President Washington." Well, that stopped the whole kitchen dead in its tracks. We all gathered around, and she stood there saying, "Don't all holler. How can I tell you about it if you're all asking questions at once?" She didn't have the chance to be the center of things too often, and I could see she was going to stretch it out if she could. But the others kept jabbering at her, and she had to tell it. George Washington, he'd asked Mr. Francis to be his steward, which was to be in charge of the kitchen and the cooks and the waiters and other help. And Mr. Francis was going to take the job. More than that, he was going to take some of the help from the tavern along with him to the president's house. "Oh, lands," the third cook said. "Imagine cooking at the president's house with all them generals and congressmen and admirals and maybe kings from Europe, too, sitting around. It'd scare me so I'd drop." The second cook gave her a sharp look. "It ain't nothing you have to worry about," she said. "Mr. Francis ain't likely to take no cook who burns water boiling eggs." It was true. The day before, the third cook had set a pot of eggs on the fire and let the water boil away and cook the eggs until they was black. I ain't the only one who burned things around here, the third cook shot back. Well, that was true, too. The second cook got drunk once on a Sunday when everybody was off to church and fell asleep and burned a whole roast beef. Be quiet, the two of you, the first cook said. It beats all how either of you, as can hardly make a pot of tea without spilling something or burning something or dropping something in the fire, could have the presumption to think Mr. Francis would consider taking either of you anywheres near the president's house, much less inside of it. Mr. Francis, he'll know who to take to cook for President Washington, meaning she knew he ought to take her, even if the rest of them didn't. Well, it was exciting to think about working for the president with all those famous men swimming around and deciding how to run the country. But I knew there wasn't no point in my thinking about it much because I wouldn't be part of the excitement. I reckoned Mr. Francis would take the first cook no matter if she put on airs because she was first cook. And I reckoned he might take one of the other cooks too, and some of the waiters. He might take Horace. But he couldn't take everybody. He had to leave somebody to work at the tavern, and I was pretty confident that he wasn't likely to take over to the president's house a sassy black kitchen maid who was always skidding off someplace and putting her nose where it didn't belong. Made me wish I'd behaved better. It made me wish I'd been good and worked hard and didn't sass nobody and said my prayers and not had impure thoughts, even if I didn't know what they was until it was too late. Maybe if I'd done all that, Mr. Francis would have thought particular high of me, the way he thought high of Dan for being brave and such. And if he'd thought high of me, why, maybe he'd have said to himself, Carrie is just so wonderful at working and not having impure thoughts, I believe I'll take her with me to the president's house. But it was too late for that. So, feeling sort of down, I went back to the potatoes and listened to the cooks chatter on about what it would be like to work for George Washington and how there would be mountains of silver plate gleaming everywhere and fine china come from England and France with pictures painted on them and heaps of food with no stinting on cream and butter and spices. Just fling in as much as you wanted and not think twice about it.